Hey guys, Jack on Wrist here, back with another video, and in today's video, I want to do a 2025 State of the Collection video. I'll keep this intro pretty quick. It's been quite a while since you've seen my collection in its entirety. Some things have definitely changed, and so I figured it was a good time to go ahead and show off everything that's happened. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the video with my 2025 State of the Collection. Alright, so I figured I would structure this video by starting with the watches I received the most recently, and then moving backwards towards the ones I have had for quite a while now. And so without further ado, this is the first watch here, and this is a Raymond Weil from the Tango collection. Now, I don't know a ton about this watch, to be honest with you. I know it's from the Tango collection because that's what it says on the back of the watch here. And I know it's a beautiful piece with a sunburst effect blue dial, a really nice gold bezel, as well as a sort of two-tone Jubilee-ish style bracelet. But that's really all I know about it. Of course, it also has a quartz movement, as you can see by the second hand. What I do know about this piece is that it means the world to me. This was my grandfather's watch, and unfortunately he passed away just a few months ago. And this is the watch that I remember him wearing the most. He does have a couple other watches that you'll see in this collection video that I've had for a little bit, but this is the one that I remember him most with. And especially as I've gotten into watches over the past 5 or 6 years, this is one I've really looked at a lot. And so it's my pleasure to have this watch and wear it, and with, of course, wearing it with him in mind. And, on a more of a watch specific level, this has definitely opened me up a lot to Raymond Weil as a brand and looking at their back catalog, and they definitely have a lot of really nice watches. But yeah, I wish I could share some more details about this piece, but I'm not super familiar with this brand. I do know it's a pretty decent one, at least in terms of having a legitimate history and making some nice watches. But yeah, to me, this watch is not about Raymond Weil and their history. It's about my personal history with this watch. And so it's a pleasure to own it, like I said, and happy to start off this video talking about it. Is this Seiko quartz watch, and this is another one from my grandfather, and so you can tell it has some scratches and scuffs on the crystal here, and it's seen some better days. I did recently put it on this new Deluxe leather strap, which I believe is a really nice strap. I'll really recommend the brand, not sponsor or anything like that, just really a huge fan of it. But yeah, just a really classy looking Seiko. I definitely have to get the watch looked at because I put a new battery in it and it seems to have some issues. So yeah, gotta put some TLC into this piece, but really nice and, really moderate size, about 33, 34 millimeters. And so really, really classic, nice gold watch here. My grandfather, again, not to overshare the details here, but he received this as a 20 or I think 25 year anniversary with his company. And so he got the classic gold watch treatment, and this is what he got. So really, really nice, and another piece that I'm very proud to have. All right, so this is where we get into more recognizable territory. This is the Casio DW-290, otherwise known as the Mission Impossible Casio. And this is a watch I think a lot of people already know a lot about. I know channels like TGV have really gone into a lot of depth about this particular piece. Really the only shout I want to mention here is that I believe this watch has officially become discontinued. When you go online, you can see that the price has now become more elevated than in the past, around $50 on Amazon and Walmart and a lot of those other places. So definitely would recommend trying to get your hands on this for as cheap of a price as you can find it before it spikes potentially even more. Obviously, this is not the fanciest Casio ever, and there's almost kind of a cap on what they possibly could charge for something like this. But really a cool piece. I think it's become, like I said, a cult classic within the watch community, and obviously it's got a really unique size and look to it. But I'm a huge fan, and I love Mission Impossible, and so I had to get my hands on this before the price went up. And yeah, so here we go, the Casio DW-290. All right, so to continue the Casio train here, this is the Casio A700, and this is a piece that I have so much respect and love for. I believe it is probably one of the best value retro-inspired watches you can buy. Obviously, this is not going to be the craziest watch in terms of pure specifications that you can buy. It's got a pretty basic Casio module inside of it with some very basic features. Obviously, it's got an alarm, stopwatch, and that's kind of the extent of it. But what you lack in features, you have gained in overall wearability and just a really cool retro look. This piece will probably run you about $30, and compared to some of the other sort of retro inspired pieces you can buy out there, this is going to obviously keep immaculate time and just look really sharp. So can't recommend this enough. Really enjoyed wearing this. Obviously it's super light. It's got a metal bracelet, but it's got that resin case to it. And it's just really, really nice. So can't recommend this enough. The Casio A700. All right, so this is the Rolex 124270, otherwise known as the Explorer. And this is pretty much the heaviest hitter in my collection. I mean, this is definitely the most expensive watch I have, and it's really been my grow watch for as long as I've been into watches. Of course, when I first started into watches, this watch didn't really technically exist. The earliest, or rather the most recent version of the 36mm Rolex was the 114270, which I did own for quite a while. But this past year, I went ahead and made the switch over to this piece, really mostly because it has just a modern solidity and feel to it that you just don't get with the sort of neo-vintage model. Obviously, you do have some concessions with upgrading to this watch, a newer movement that's sort of been less tested, and really just an overall sort of vintage feel that you just don't get with something like this. But I've really enjoyed my time with it. It does feel like this watch is a lot more sort of rock solid than any watch I own. And like I said, the Rolex Explorer is my grail. I absolutely love it, and I couldn't be happier. But yeah, I mean, definitely the most expensive watch I have, and something I want to take care of for a very, very long time. The Rolex Explorer 124270. All right, so this is the Casio G-Shock GBD-200. This is a watch I received from my girlfriend on my birthday. Just an awesome gift. This is a really, really cool watch. My first ever exposure to the Bluetooth connected G-Shock world, and I gotta say, it is really, really nice having that connectivity and these features. Obviously, this is a watch that has just a million features if you really break down the owner's manual, but what you get in this piece from a very, everyday perspective, a basic perspective, is a piece that's going to be dead on accurate to the atomic clock. That's going to obviously have all the same G-Shock features in terms of just how much of a absolute beater this thing can be. And it is really awesome to have. And also really a huge fan of this gray color, not a color you see as often. Of course, the sort of classic black resin is, or black rubber rather, is very common. So cool to have a nice neutral color that's a bit different. So huge fan of this piece. Really, really recommend the sort of Casio GBD-200 line, as well as a lot of their fitness models. Really think they're super cool, and again, would highly recommend. All right, so next up here is the Casio Duro, and not much to say about this watch, to be honest with you. I was lucky enough to receive this from my lovely girlfriend as well for one of our anniversaries, and this is basically Casio 101. It is one of the most popular, one of the most famous Casios. Of course, everyone knows that Bill Gates wears this watch, and it is just awesome. I wore this watch to Mexico and doing a lot of the sort of water activities that we participated in. Having this watch on me felt very comfortable and right at home. 200 meters of water resistance, and just a very clean black on black dive watch. I do have it on this Barton leather strap just because I love what Barton does. And again, not sponsored, just huge fan, and the relatively cheap straps. And it's just really a nice piece. And another one of those watches that if you don't have, it's not too expensive for, at least in the grand scale of what watches can be. And again, I keep saying recommend. I would highly recommend all these watches. Of course, I own all these watches, so you'd kind of hope so. But, this maybe more than anything else I'd recommend, just because, again, it's relatively affordable and it can be your everyday watch, and you can rely on it so heavily. So really awesome. Fits a lot of scenarios, can be dressy, can be sporty. And yeah, so huge fan. Yeah, the Casio Duro. All right, so next up here is my 1969 Hamilton Fontainebleau. This is another watch I received from a family member, and this is a really cool watch in my humble opinion. Obviously, you can tell here it has such a unique K-shape and sort of design to it, and really just a fun watch to throw on, every so often, just for something different. You guys in the past have been so kind about this piece when I've posted about it, sort of talking about its unique style and K-shape. And again, that's what I'm kind of harping on here. Really cool to own. This watch, I believe, was a birth year watch for my dad that my grandfather bought, to celebrate it. So really cool, unique backstory to it. And a piece that I kind of hope Hamilton brings back. I know, you know, really most watch brands these days are not against bringing back some older designs, and I would love for them to bring something like this back. Maybe it's a little different for today's era of watches, but I think it'd be really cool, and I think they could really have a killer piece in this watch. It also does have a bracelet that it came with originally that is really unique and cool, so I would love to see them try to execute something like this, but maybe that's a bit of a long shot here, but really a great piece, you know, really cool. So yeah, the Hamilton Fontainebleau. All right, so this is the last Casio of the video. I know you've seen quite a lot of them today, but this is the last one. And this is the Casio G-Shock GWM5610. And this is basically that classic G-Shock DW5600 with that little twist of having the multi-band 6 technology. So a really cool piece, again, kind of similar to the Bluetooth functionality you saw on the GBD200. This has that sort of, you know, radio wavelength connectivity that makes this watch just extremely accurate and extremely reliable, of course, in the body of that classic G-Shock. This has seen some better days, but, you know, it's hard not to keep going back to this watch. It's really old, reliable. I've had it for about 5 years now, got it for the holidays, and haven't looked back. You know, it's hard to get a new one when it's just so reliable, and still I think looks pretty good. Of course, you know, it probably could use a nice cleanup, but still looks pretty good in my opinion. So really a classic piece. I always prefer, you know, a watch like this or a watch like the GBD200 with that multi-band 6 or Bluetooth technology over sort of a standard quartz model, just because I love having that extra level of accuracy, even though I know, of course, even that quartz, you know, standard quartz movement is going to do you really, really well. So love this piece. We'll probably wear it for another 5 years, you know, or so, whatever I can get out of it. And yeah, really cool. The Casio G-Shock GWM5610. All right, so next up here is my Bulova tank. Now, another piece that I don't know a ton about. Obviously, Bulova is a great brand, and this is a really sharp piece. Who doesn't love that sort of tank style watch with, in this case, a nice small seconds. But yeah, I don't know a ton about it. Came from a family member, and you know, obviously, again, super, super clean piece, manual wind. But this is, I guess, where I ask you guys, if you know anything about this piece, I would love for you guys to share it with me. Can't really tell exactly when this watch dates to. If I had to take a guess, I'd say 50s or 60s, but I know that's quite a big time range, well, with those 2 decades. So who really knows? But another piece to throw on if you're really going super, super dressy. Got it on this really nice Hadley Aroma Croc strap. Hadley Aroma is a decent little brand for straps. Nothing super expensive, especially for a watch I'm not going to wear super often. So yeah, I think it suits it pretty well, and nice piece. You know, again, not one I wear often, but nice to have some nice diversity to the collection with a manual wind and a Bulova and a nice gold case. So really, really cool. All right, so second to last here is my Seiko 7N43. This is obviously, as you can tell, a Rolex Datejust inspired quartz Seiko model. Not a whole lot to say here other than I want to mention that this was actually from my grandfather that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. And as you may remember from previous videos or previous State of the Collection videos, this is a watch that has a really kind of a cool story in my opinion. My grandfather received this from someone in the Seiko family, someone that he said was named Taiko or Taiko Seiko. Not 100% sure how to pronounce the name and can't really verify the story too well, but always love that story. And, you know, I believe my grandpa on this one. I know he had some pretty cool connections, and so really cool to have a piece like this. I believe it was one of the earlier quartz Seikos in the United States, and so again, really cool to have. I don't think it's like a special edition or, you know, anything like that, but of course, coming from my grandfather, I love it, and you know, hearing about the little story behind it, that it came from someone connected to the Seiko family or from the Seiko family. So really, really cool. And yeah, it's got this sort of almost dark blue, potentially almost black dial, and you know, with that Rolex Datejust style, it's hard to really complain. Of course, it's always going to look sharp regardless of whether it's an homage or whether it's the real thing. It's going to look great on wrist. So awesome watch, you know, kind of sticking to that Rolex sizing of 36 millimeters. Yeah, super clean. Got on another really nice brown strap here to kind of complement it. And yeah, Huge fan of this piece, and I've owned this watch more than really any other watch other than one piece you'll see in a second here. So I've had a long history with it, and happy to have it. All right, last but not least here is my 1981 Omega DeVille. Now this is a watch that longtime viewers may have seen many times over now, as it's been in every collection of mine. It was my first ever watch that I received. It was my great-grandfather's, and what an awesome way to start the hobby of watch collecting. I've sort of mentioned this before, but really receiving this watch kickstarted my hobby, or my passion for the hobby, I should say. And you know, I'm very fortunate to have received an Omega because, you know, I think being able to look up Omega as a brand and kind of start digging into its history and, you know, what they've done, I think really helped accelerate my excitement towards watches and, you know, seeing what they're all about. So really, really an awesome piece. Another deluxe strap here that I think complements it pretty well. It's got an inscription on the back from my grandparents to my great-grandfather. Again, yeah, I don't want to go on too long here because I know this piece has been around my channel for quite a while now, but really, really lucky to have this piece. Really, really awesome. And also you'll notice no crown here, just a pusher for the time, another kind of unique feature of this piece. And yeah, another thing that kind of sets it apart from the rest. So happy to have it, really grateful, and what can I say? My first ever watch, so it's going to have a special connection to me. All right, so that's pretty much it for this video. This is my 2025 State of the Collection, and I appreciate you guys always sticking with me and watching my channel over the past many years. I believe this is my 4th State of the Collection video, and yeah, I've really enjoyed the hobby and getting to experience it with people commenting and being a part of the channel and interacting with you guys. So really, really appreciative. Please stay tuned for more watch content. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and see you guys in the next one. Take care.